Hello, I'm Dr. Balthazar. Happy New Year, everyone. Just living that small channel life over here in my corner of the interweb. So, ever get hijacked by a memory of some humiliation or regret that just comes out of left field? You're going about your day agreeably enough, and for whatever reason, your brain spins out some stupid moment you would prefer the memory banks just deleted. It isn't your subconscious trying to fuck up your day, because your subconscious is a dick. It's actually a pathway in the brain that evolution has wired in as an eco-defense mechanism. Fundamentally, it's not different from how your brain tells you not to put your hand on a hot stove a second time. We did or said something that resulted in a strong negative emotional reaction, likely steeped in either guilt or shame, and the brain's memory pathway is keeping that moment on our radars to try to prevent us from making the same mistake. Happy memories are like landmines the brain couldn't care less if we stumbled into all day long. Unhappy memories are like landmines the brain wants us to avoid stepping on a second time. But to come to the principal point, god damn did I eat a lot of shit back in the day for telling everyone The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension was an awesome movie. Just took a raw drink that lasted for about half a decade on that one. Now, one of the problems with the memory's ego defense pathways is they don't actually provide much instruction on how to avoid making an ass of yourself in the future. They're too specific to a context that's unlikely to come up again with that much specificity, like a kaleidoscope that won't spin out the same colors and shapes a second time. The physiology of my brain makes me shudder at the memory of telling my peers Buckaroo Banzai was awesome, in the hope that I won't embarrass myself in the future, but it's offering no assistance on how to go about that beyond reminding me not to tell people Buckaroo Banzai is awesome, which is advice I'm going to ignore. Physiology of the brain, coherent plot and story structure, and everyone I knew in junior high can kiss my ass. Buckaroo Banzai is still awesome. Okay, so if you've watched any of my videos, you can say without fear of contradiction, Dr. Balthazar, you are dumb as fuck. But not completely unreasonable as far as bullshit fake doctors go. Why are you digging your heels in on this turkey from 1984? It's objectively a bad movie, a box office flop that couldn't recoup half its production costs, and a scatterbrained mess of a story. Fair points. Let's take the standard movie breakdown of considering a bit of background context with a look into character development, story, world building, and theme to see if I can answer any of that. Buckaroo Banzai was the brainchild of a screenwriter named Earl Mac Rauch, which another screenwriter by the name of W.D. Richter
See you at the party, Richter!
Had a fascination with, and got into production and later directed. Neither of these gentlemen have extensive writing credits in Hollywood productions, probably for a reason. I'd argue that between the two, the most impressive work was Richter's writing credits on either Brubaker or Big Trouble in Little China. My vote going to Big Trouble in Little China, because it's fucking awesome. By all accounts, Rauch was one of those writers who starts with an idea and then loses the thread and wanders off to some other story or concept. By his own admission, he wrote about a dozen partial scripts and hundreds of pages on Buckaroo Banzai, or Buckaroo Bandy as he preferred the character be called. So we have a sizable backlog of Buckaroo Banzai stories and concepts, just none of them followed through on or made coherent. If you read any of the History of Middle-earth books Christopher Tolkien released, more or less showing the sausage being made by J.R.R. Tolkien, as he wrote and rewrote the histories of Middle-earth, you can forgive a writer for having a brain that is going in 5 directions at once. But before you submit a draft of a novel, screenplay, or whatever, you need to either make your story coherent, hold off on submission, or agree to considerable editing by others. Get to the end of the story, and go back to the beginning and rewrite it all so it makes sense from A to Z. Or don't. Be like that asshole who wrote the Game of Thrones and meander around with no consistent logic to any of the character motives or actions. I'm not offering advice anyone needs to follow. But taking the example of a writer who actually showed competence in their profession, Tolkien had a dozen different concepts of what Galadriel was doing in the Second Age, none of which bear any resemblance to the visual suppository Amazon released with the Rings of Power. Fuck that show. But he didn't publish any of those concepts because he hadn't settled on a single coherent storyline for the character and worked it into the context of his Middle-earth in a way that made sense from start to finish. Buckaroo Banzai is a movie with a backlog of stories, characters, and concepts underpinning it that makes for rich world building, but just can't translate these things into a coherent narrative. The storyline of The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, which doesn't take place in the Eighth Dimension or contain any real adventures across it, starts with the screen crawl establishing Buckaroo Banzai as something of a wunderkind in a variety of different intellectual fields and the leader of a crew of eccentrics. He moves from performing brain surgery to attempting a land speed record in a jet car on behalf of a military branch that is funding a land speed record attempt for reasons. He hijacks a test midway to trial an interdimensional flux capacitor that briefly jumps him through the Eighth Dimension. The Eighth Dimension is a cross between Superman's Phantom Zone and the New Jersey Turnpike, connecting Earth to Planet 10. Anyway, the denizens of Planet 10 are pissed that the Earth opened up a doorway into the Phantom Zone's Jersey Turnpike because they put a Space Hitler and his army there. Although Space Hitler escaped decades ago by transferring his consciousness into the body of John Lithgow. So Buckaroo and company have to stop Space Hitler from jacking their Phantom Zone Turnpike quick pass and freeing his army, or the Earth will be preemptively nuked by Planet 10. I feel like I'm fucking drunk outlining the storyline here. Jesus Christ.
sounding like a complete idiot right now.
At any given time, you really can't ask what anyone is doing and hope to make sense out of it. You just have to be along for the ride here. For characters, we have an eccentric mix, though I'm not sure an argument can be made for any real character development. Buckaroo Banzai, played by Peter Weller of RoboCop fame, is a genius neurosurgeon, physicist, test pilot, rock musician, gunslinger, and martial artist who displays no proficiency in any fighting style during the movie. He doesn't go on a hero's journey of any kind. That would probably have had to have been an origin story of some kind, and the movie starts with him and his crew already well established in the world they inhabit. He doesn't face a conflict that requires him to acquire a new skill set, or even put to use the multitude of skill sets he already possesses. He doesn't find himself in a position that requires him to change or adapt to overcome in some way. It's like picking up a comic book several years into its run. We have a story arc, but not a character arc. The hero already be who they is, and that's not changing. Buckaroo has a sizable crew of colorful cohorts. Reno, Rawhide, Perfect Tommy, New Jersey, Pinky Carruthers, and many others who are who they are without undergoing changes either. The villainous aliens from Planet 10, as played by John Lithgow, Christopher Lloyd, and Vincent Schiavelli, all seem to be enjoying the chance to go over the top of their performances. We have a love interest in Penny Pretty, played by Ellen Barkin, who may be the only character to undergo any kind of character development during the film. But like all things in front of the camera, it's a scatterbrained mess that doesn't work if you think about what you're seeing. Let's consider her introduction in more detail to illustrate the point. Buckaroo and the Hong Kong Cavaliers are playing a show at a New Jersey nightclub. It's music that is beyond terrible. It's like Spinal Tap's Jazz Rock Odyssey show, only unintentionally bad. It's truly horrific. Anyway, Buckaroo stops the music to ask the crowd if someone isn't having a good time, to which I would say, yeah dude, good, absolutely. But lo and behold, there is in fact a girl who isn't having a good time. An attractive young woman has gotten herself all dolled up on a Saturday night, come to the club, and is sitting by herself at a table centered to the stage crying. Buck has also come to fuck.
My name is Buck, and I'm here to fuck.
So he plays a ballad to cheer her up. She seems responsive, then takes a handgun out of her purse, which she brought to the club like an NFL player, and goes to shoot herself in the head. But the waiter bumps her arm and she fires off a round into the ceiling. Let's hope it isn't a multi-floor club. She's put in jail for attempting to assassinate Buckaroo Banzai, which is a reasonable assumption given anyone at that show with a pistol would undoubtedly try to use it on either the band or themselves. Buckaroo goes to see her in jail and realizes she's the long-lost twin sister of his deceased ex-wife, possibly lost to us in response to his band's music and the ease of access to guns in America. She's released on his say-so, which I guess is how county lockup works when one is held for public endangerment and illegal discharge of a firearm, but now she no longer has any suicidal ideation. She's cured. Great character development and transformation. This is a nonsensical tangle of character relations and interactions.
Stolen from the cradle and fostered to manhood by his Montague mother that was robbed of her own child by the Pirate King.
If we want to establish a personality trait of empathy and concern for others in the male lead, why does it need to be in the context of introducing a character who is suicidal? What has driven the female lead to this state of despair? And how are these deeply morbid feelings and a willingness to act on them transcended? Why is this playing out in the context of a Jazz Rock Odyssey show rather than in some other setting? Why does the female lead need to be the long-lost twin sister of the male lead's ex-wife? Is that a setup to a payoff that comes later? And if she isn't the twin sister to the male lead's ex-wife, the payoff won't work. These are fair questions, but you aren't going to get answers to them in the film. Clearly, there were other storylines or fragments of other storylines at play here that were included since they are part of the lore surrounding Buckaroo Banzai and Earl Mac Rausch and W.D. Richter's heads, which adds something to the world building, but it just doesn't make sense if you stop for a moment to consider what's going on. But setting aside the basic illogic of the script, the world building is what ends up hooking me into this silly-ass film, and I don't think I'm alone on that one. Looking at Team Banzai, we have a cowboy, a redneck, an Asian, a Latino, an African-American, a bleach blonde fellow who wears a silver rhinestone scarf, bare-chested under a white coat with poppin' red shoes. So we aren't saying he's one of the gays in 1984, but maybe make your own conclusion there. We also have women as well as men, young as well as old, a true mix of anyone who wants to come on board. There are groups on top of groups. The Hong Kong Cavaliers are sort of the inner circle, while the Blue Blaze Irregulars are a larger collection of something. It feels like there isn't a membership requirement that would preclude you or I from being welcomed into Team Banzai on some level, provided we're eccentrics with a bit of our own style. It feels inclusive in a natural way, without trying to check boxes or pander. And I like inclusiveness. Or rather, my stern sense of fair play makes me resent individuals being excluded. But you don't have to crowbar representation in or ram it down the viewer's throat. I would argue the Perfect Tommy character has enough ambiguity in his look for guys of alternative lifestyles circa 1984 to project a bit of themselves into the character. But whether or not you see the character as gay, you aren't gaining or losing anything. It doesn't matter. The box checking today is so heavy-handed, and the audience getting it of such high importance.
My mom's.
Although maybe I'm just tired of irrelevant sexual identity labels masquerading as individuality and depth on and off the silver screen. But it is what it is. Anyway, this is a silly, stupid world everyone seems to enjoy existing in, where a nerd can grab the glasses, pocket protector, and hand cannon and join in the adventure. It's a world badly written by nerds, for nerds. Even the promotion of the film was predominantly at Star Trek conventions, although it released in summer of '84 directly in opposition to Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. So what the fuck are you thinking? I mean, Ghostbusters and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom were going to clean house and eat everyone's lunch at the box office that year anyway. But still, try to stack the deck in your favor a little bit there, fellas. For themes, I don't know if there are any specific ones. The movie isn't trying to say anything about people or society. It's just an odd collection of characters, led by a guy with a silly name fighting Space Hitler and his alien stooges. Silly, stupid fun for the sake of silly, stupid fun. Buckaroo has a line or two when he's simultaneously courting and talking Penny off the ledge that suggests something of a thematic philosophy on the human person.
Remember, no matter where you go, there you are.
But it's fortune cookie wisdom. At a glance, it passes as clever-ish, but when you think about it, it's an empty phrase in the same family as "it is what it is," which is a saying I like to use to politely dismiss a topic of conversation that doesn't interest me. I consider tone part of a film's general theme, and this one doesn't seem to fully embrace over-the-top campiness, but can't get away from it either, which correctly or incorrectly I read as the end result of an inexperienced director. Its genre is science fiction. The visual look they go with is bioorganic rather than future tech. I'm more of a steampunk guy myself, but that's just aesthetics. The special effects would have been a dumpster fire no matter what branch of the sci-fi tree the aliens fell out of. Still, the movie has an interesting style that's all its own. There's something about the look and feel of the costumes, sets, and special effects that's totally dated, but still kind of cool for a sci-fi nerd, especially those of us that prefer a minimalist approach to CGI. Buckaroo Banzai's costume is almost Pee Wee Herman in its presentation, with the bow tie and shoes and the red-rimmed glasses that were not particularly hip in the 80s. But with the hipsters of the 2000s, all this came back in an unexpected way. Little things like using the reflection of a biker helmet's face shield to convey the speed of a moving vehicle is visually pleasing. Apparently, the Buckaroo Banzai headbands were things they couldn't give away in the promotion work leading up to the film, and now they're a highly sought-after collector's item. The end credits team march serves as a good example of the movie having a sense of style that it can't really fashion into a coherent part of the story, but is still kinda cool. Buckaroo descends a rope into a dry aqueduct into what appears to be Los Angeles, following a movie set in New Jersey. He's a man on the move and his homeboys are joining in one at a time, with the camera panning across using some flyby cinematography. We're following feet as the team marches on and Buckaroo pulls out some kind of jump step spinorama, who knows why. The synth keytar is throwing down some killer 80s beats, courtesy of Michael Boddicker. Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou paid homage to the team march to wrap its movie as well. Why it exists I still couldn't say, but there's something about it that is either cool in a way of the nerd style, or a further exclamation point on how none of this bullshit is your thing. Characters we saw die or leave the planet have somehow now returned, who knows how or why. But the band is back together and on the move. Watch for the return of Buckaroo Banzai against the World Crime League, coming soon to a theater near you. Never wise to bank on a sequel. The only thing an investor group can reasonably promise a filmmaker is a chance to make their film and see what returns it brings. While on the other side of the ledger, I'd argue the only thing a filmmaker can reasonably promise is to break even on production costs. Anything else is too many variables to reliably predict. Exhibit A to that point, Barbenheimer. But if you're making a film, you better be able to cover your production costs. Don't count on making back your coin or bringing home your story in part 2 or season 2. So, in summary, yeah, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Through the Eighth Dimension is an objectively bad movie. But it's a bad movie that falls into the category of cult classic because plenty of dorks like myself see a sci-fi world that would be fun to escape into for a while. One that welcomes us in without preconditions, messaging, or bad intent. It's a film that is unapologetically by nerds for nerds. It's almost like seeing a loser wander into the center of attention for a moment, make an ass of themselves. The cool kids are going to savage them, while the other unpopular kids are going to think, well, that could have gone better. But it's great that one of us gave it a go. Good for them. Which is kind of Buckaroo Banzai in a nutshell. Too bad they put themselves out of business with the effort, but good for them for trying to bring to life this goofy mess of a science fiction world. Anyway, for those that like campy sci-fi films, my prescription would be Flash Gordon. For others that can shrug and say, yeah, I'm a nerd, fuck your mouth. Revenge of the Nerds works. And for those that just want a badass movie from the 80s, Big Trouble in Little China is where it's at. I'm Dr. Balthazar. Like what you like, don't what you don't. It's all your call, Buckaroo. Take it easy, everyone.